edition of the Seventh Sea RPG. My name is Robert, also known as Aislinn.
Oh,
Yes.
wait, what? Hi, I'm Richard.
And Josh.
And let's get into it then. So, one of the things we're not going to actually go through on character creation here, but they do this or suggest it, is something called the 20 questions. Unlike in the Seventh Sea, or not the Seventh, sorry, I apologize, the Legend of the Five Rings one that we did in our first episode, which was very mechanically oriented as well, this one is pretty much exclusively character oriented. So it's really about your motivations and all that. And by skipping it, we're not trying to suggest that this isn't important. I think this is absolutely fabulous that they actually include this. John Wick, the writer of this game, comes up with some really interesting stuff that I don't know that a lot of people really think about when they make their characters necessarily. When in what he asks of this, and I know that a lot of good GMs that I've listened to on a few podcasts suggest very strongly that maybe not this particular set, but at least that there's a series of good questions that you should ask about the characters whenever you do a game. So since it's, like I said, pretty much background oriented, we're really just trying to highlight the mechanics here and give you an idea of what the system looks like, and if it might interest you. We're going to kind of skip over that. But like I said, I think it's really kind of cool, and I very strongly recommend at least looking them over. We might actually look at a few of them because there's a few of them do, while not mechanical per se, they do inform some of the choices that you would make mechanically. So when you're making a 7th Street character, hero creation starts with as with a lot of games, is your step zero of creating a kind of just a broad concept of the character, and that's where the game of 20 questions comes in. We'll give you just a couple of them. Like I said, it's for the most part these are all purely non-mechanical character questions. But a few of them do inform a couple mechanical choices. Like, for instance, very first one, very simple, is what nation is your hero from? Now, nation in 7th Sea kind of takes the place of race in, say a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So, as opposed to elf, dwarf, human, halfling, etc. In this, it's nations, and they're sort of proto homages might be a better word for to a number of European nations right now. We're only going to be dealing with the core rulebook, but some of the expansion books do include other nations. So you have a number of choices. What I'm going to be picking is Castile, which is sort of analog to Spain. So my character will be from Castile. What about you guys?
Well, I decided to make my character from Usura, which is the analog of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And does that want
Joshua?
there?
I don't remember who all these people are anymore.
There's even actually some new ones.
Yeah, they took away the fire magic, so.
They changed the magic a lot.
They changed quite a bit of the magic. We're talking about the first edition of it versus the current edition of it. While John Wick was responsible for the creation of both of them, 7th Sea First Edition was an AEG product. He was the lead writer for it, but obviously other people got a lot of say in it as well, and there were some parts of the story that he was less fond of than others. and I hope I'm being as diplomatic as possible on that. I don't want to suggest I don't know his motivations. I don't know anyone else's. I'm not trying to suggest that there was anything there that was just meant as a neutral statement. But he liked the magic a little more dialed back. So he's done that with his second edition. He's sort of rewritten everything. So while there's a lot of parallels that you can take from first to second, there's a lot of differences too. So what do you got questions about, Joshua?
No, I'm just looking over the different nations.
Okay.
Yeah. At least this edition, all the day of magic isn't coming from demons.
No, it's quite varied this time.
Yeah, it's very varied.
Castile had theirs. Well, I mean, in the very first beginning of 7th Seas first edition, it wasn't there anyways. So I don't want to say taken away per se, but yeah, Avalon's got changed functionally, a little less than spiritually. It still kind of keeps the spirit, I think, of the old magic. Eisen got a brand new one.
Yeah, well, that's because you couldn't even get the Eisen one without.
It was suggested very strongly that it remain in the NPC's hands. Sort of like if you're playing a Star Wars campaign, they really strongly recommend not doing dark side characters and allowing dark side powers. It changes the tone quite a lot.
Well, when you can, it was like disintegrate stuff, right?
Yep. Sarmatia's got a new interesting one. That's the sort of analog to Poland.
Oh, is that what they're supposed to be? Okay.
Yeah, Sarmatian Commonwealth is supposed to be Poland. He met John, from what I understand, met a number of Polish fans of first edition, just who mentioned why weren't we in first edition, and sort of inundated him in their culture and their mythology and all of that, and he just fell in love with it. So now that he got a chance to rewrite everything, he decided to add them in.
There was a period of time when Poland was a major player.
Yep.
Wasn't very long, but it was there.
Yep. So what do you think, Joshua?
I guess I'll be the Sarmatian Commonwealth.
All right.
Okay.
So let me just give you a couple of ideas of some of the other of these 20 questions, and then we'll move on to a little more of the mechanical part. Question 2 is, how would you physically describe your character? Question 3, does your character have any recurring mannerisms? 4 is what's your main motivation? Some interesting ones. Number 11, does your hero have any prejudices?
A lot of
14, what about your hero's family? Number 15, how would your hero's parents describe them? So, I mean, these are some really interesting questions, and then a number of them are ones that a lot of RPGs really wouldn't, I think to ask, and that I think are still kind of interesting. I mean, how often do you think about how your parents would describe, how the parents of your characters would describe them, But it can be thought-provoking, give you some ideas. But that's all we're going to dwell on for the 20 questions. Like I said, they're very interesting, and I recommend looking through them. So we're going to move on to step 1, traits. Every hero in 7th Sea has 5 traits. You have brawn, which is pretty much what it sounds like on the tin: strength and physical power. Finesse is your coordination and agility. Resolve is your willpower and your endurance. Wits is how quickly you can think on your feet, and because it's sort of a swashbuckling game, panache is very important. That's your charm and personal magnetism. All of your traits start at a 2, and you get 2 bonus points to spend. So I am going to add a point in finesse and a point in wits, I think. Nope, I'm going to go to panache. What are you thinking, Richard?
Well, I want my character to be very socially adept, so I put 2 points in panache.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Joshua, what are you thinking?
I am putting 2 points in wits and 1 point in
No,
finesse.
you only get 2 points.
Oh,
Math are hard.
yeah, no, so oh, wait, no,
Yeah.
sorry, I was looking at something else. So,
Yeah, you skipped ahead a step, I think.
yeah. Okay, they don't even get that in. I was looking at this one. I'm putting 1 in wits and 1 in finesse.
All right. And then step 2 is a nation bonus, and that's why I said like that very first question does have a little bit of a mechanical bonus later on. We chose our nation. So each nation basically gets a pair of traits, and you choose one of the two and you add 1 to it. Castile, for instance, gets finesse and wits, so I'm going to improve my wits by 1. Richard, the Usurans get resolve or wits. What do you think you're picking?
That's a tough one. I think my Usuran's going to need resolve.
Certainly sounds like a good choice.
Yeah.
Joshua?
I chose panache. I could choose either panache or brawn.
All right. Nice. All right. The next step is backgrounds. And I hesitate almost to make this analogy because it's not exactly precise, but I think it's the closest we can come to for people who are already familiar with other RPGs. Step 3 is backgrounds. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick 2 of them. What they really are, backgrounds are sort of very, very roughly analogous to classes in, say, D&D. In that they sort of give you a certain small package of stuff that defines that background. It's not as restrictive as a full-blown class in that where you go from character creation, this is really a character creation thing only. You pick your 2 backgrounds, you get this little package of skills and quirks and background and skills, advantages, that's the word I was looking for. But after the game starts, you go wherever the heck you want. It's not like a D&D class where I'm a fighter. At first level I get A, and second level I get B, and 5th level I get C, etc., etc. It's really just explaining where you came from, rather than
classes out of Elder Scrolls.
That's probably a good
I mean,
explanation.
You are still sort of, you do sort of get that really does affect you in the end, because it affects how your skills go up in Elder Scrolls, but you can do anything you want after the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am picking for my first background, duelist. As my general concept for my character is that he's a swordsman. And then for my second background, and I'll go a little more deeper into this, but we're going to let everybody kind of lay out what they're doing. And I'm probably about to mangle this word, so my apologies to John Wick and anyone who knows Spanish at all who listens to this. It's a diestro. Which, again, like I said, I'm fairly sure I just mangled that word. And that's someone who has dedicated their life to the understanding of the sword, not just its function, not just its use as a tool, but the lifestyle of being a swordsman. So that's my 2. Richard, what are you thinking?
Well, I wanted my character to come from a good background, so I chose aristocrat. So he's a member of the Usuran nobility. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him to be a spellcaster, so I took the Usuran spell, magic, which was touched by I'm going to mangle this. Matushka, something like that.
Matushka, I think.
Which means essentially you get your magic from an old woman.
Mm-hmm.
magical old woman. Sort of a Baba Yaga equivalent, but
A little
she's
more benevolent, but yeah.
she doesn't have the evil inherent in Baba Yaga.
Right.
But yeah, it allows you to do a bunch of things, and one of them is shape-shifting.
Yay.
Yay!
Do you need the background to gain magic?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no. To take magic, no.
There are some backgrounds. Let me explain a little bit.
You need a background in magic to start with it, but you can always acquire it later on.
Well, later on, you're also going to be able to buy advantages.
Yeah.
Or more advantages. And if you buy sorcery later on outside of a package, then yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I chose aristocrat as well. But I've actually gone and become a pirate.
Oh.
Aha.
Do you start with a boat as a pirate? I don't remember.
Does not say.
There's something that allows you to get a boat at the beginning. One of the advantages.
Well, if I don't start with one, I can always steal one.
Yeah. Oh.
So I'm marking down the skills I've got right this second.
Oh, yeah. They're underneath the various background.
Yeah, like I said, they give you basically they give you broadly three things. You get a quirk, which in the case of the duelist is that I earn what's known as a hero point, and we'll talk about those a little while later. Whenever you resort to the blade to defend a noble ideal, you'll get a few skills. Usually, I don't know if it's always 5. No, it's not. You get a few skills that you're going to gain 1 point in. Of course, there's a phone in the background. Lovely. And you'll get some advantages. In this case, I only get the Duelist Academy for the Duelist. Destro gives me a few more. So get those up. So, for instance, there's advantages as a Destro. Get my mouse to work. I have the whole city calling me. Isn't that cool? I get the Fancer. I'm sure that's vastly different than Fencer. I get the advantages of Fencer and Disarming Smile. I gain another point in Athletics, Empathy, Intimidate. In this case, I gain Scholarship. In this game world, the Castilians are well known for their universities. And I earn a hero point when you best a trained duelist at her own game. What are you guys getting out of this?
Well, I get the advantages from Aristocrat of Rich. I'm rich. And Disarming Smile. I get a quirk from it called my quirk is I earn a hero point whenever I prove nobility is more than clothes and attending court. From my Touched by Machuska, I get whatever her name is. I'm mangling it. I get 2 sorcery advantages and a survivalist. And my quirk is, which I was just checking up, is I earn a hero point whenever I teach someone a lesson in a way that would make Machuska proud.
Very nice.
Yeah, nice character.
Joshua, what do you got going on?
Well, I have the same one, the first one that Rich has, but the pirate earns a hero point when you make a personal sacrifice to ensure the freedom of another.
Nice. All right. step 4 is skills. So, like I said, you get these packages out of. I just realized my character sheet did not break quite correctly. There we go. There we go. So, but afterwards, obviously, not everybody is the same. So you're going to gain 10 skill points to add to your already existing skills, or add new skills. Each point is a single rank, whether or not you've already got any. But you cannot raise a skill above 3 when making your hero. So, like for instance, because the 2 backgrounds I chose, I have 2 points already in athletics, intimidate, and weaponry. I can't, despite having 10 more points, cannot upgrade them more than a single point each. So I am going to add a point to weaponry. I'm going to add a point to scholarship and perform. I don't mind only having the 2 intimidate. He doesn't really rely on that. He's quite the charmer, so he does do empathy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Give him 2 points in convince to 6. Get my mouse to work. Oh, that's empty. All right. And 7. And notice occasionally he has to be a little light-handed, so theft. Every good swashbuckler needs to ride and sail a little bit, in my opinion. So let me just make sure that I've got my math here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, good. Richard, what are you thinking?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, my skills are sort of all over the board from my 2 backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I decide, since my character is going to be a great lover, to put, in addition to the one I start with in tempt, I'm going to put 2 more in tempt to get my tempt up to 3. He's nobility. He should know some weaponry. He starts with none, so he gets 2, putting 2 in weaponry. Put another one in scholarship because, well, nobility. Another one in ride because he's nobility too. I also have put 2 into convince and empathy, which allows him to, do a lot of talking and convincing and figuring out what people want, hobnob with nobility. So that's what I did.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Josh, what are you thinking?
Well, I got 2 aim from my background, so I added 1 to that to bring up to 3. And then I added 2 more to sailing, and another to theft, 2 weaponry. Notice I still got 4 points left. I'm going to put 2 into perform because he's kind of a showy pirate, and 2 into warfare as well.
All right.
He's also got a couple basic ones that came from there. So he didn't spend too much time in this ability before he fled to become a pirate.
I understand. I can't blame him. All right. So, as we alluded to earlier, advantages, step 5. You're going to have 5 points to buy new advantages. And there's a variety of them, ranging from 1 point to 5 points. I mean, you could buy a ton of 1.1s, so you buy one big one. I forgot what I was going to do, so I'm going to default to Richard. Richard, what are you thinking?
Well, like I said, I was thinking of my guy being a great lover, so I'm thinking of getting the come hither 2-point advantage. Yeah, got to write that down. Come hither. I'm thinking inspired. No. Well, maybe I should go with some leadership. Maybe he should be a leader. That's another 2-point. And I can get extended family, which is normally a 2-point, but 1 point if you Surin, which he is. which means I basically have a cousin living everywhere. Yeah, that sounds good. And that's all 5 my points. Oh, down.
All right.
Yeah.
Joshua, you have some yours.
Yeah, I took sorcery, and then I was still looking over the other things, and I think I'm going to take the summation 5.1, which is actually only 3 for them. Together we are strong. Spend a hero point to give any number of my raises to another hero in the same scene, as long as they can see or hear me, because I'm kind of an inspiring kind of guy to my crew.
Sounds good. I'm actually really kind of torn. I've got 2 great ideas that I like. I like the idea of taking, there's a pair of 5-point advantages that I'm thinking about. The first is I won't die here, which basically means that when I am about getting remarkably close to dying, I can basically choose to ignore the penalties for being wounded. So I like that idea of that steal result sort of thing. But at the same time, I'm really, in fact, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to go grab a second Duelist Academy. So he's actually studied 2 styles of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't split the peers. So Duelist Academy is one of the advantages that you are allowed to take multiple times. Each time you pick it, you gain an additional school that you've trained in. Sorcery is another one that basically you can buy multiple times. So that's those. Step 6 is Arcana, which is we're going to basically choose 2 traits that are based on the 7th version of the tarot deck. They call it a sorte deck. So we'll be picking major arcana, basically. Or actually, is it all major arcana? I think so. But we'll be picking a virtue and a hubris. They do not have to be the same card. And it gives you, again, a little kind of quirk sort of thing that you can do. I have to look mine up again because I lost it. Richard, what were you thinking of yours?
Well, first for my virtue, I was going to take the Fool card, which is wily. I can activate my virtue to escape danger from the current scene. I can't rescue anybody but myself with this, though.
Very nice.
And for my hubris, I was going to take the Lover's card, which is star-crossed, which means I receive a hero point whenever my hero becomes enamored with somebody they really shouldn't. So,
I like it.
yeah.
Where did that go? All right, I'm going to describe mine a little bit backwards, actually, because that's the way they're looking in my book, or the way I'm looking at them in the book, and this way it'll make it easier on me. Sorry, guys. For my hubris, I'm using the War card, which is, as a hubris, loyalty, or loyal. I'll receive a hero point whenever my hero goes back to a fallen comrade or refuses to leave a wounded ally. I'll fill that in a little bit later. And for his virtue, where did that go, is the hero which epitomizes courageousness. I get to activate my virtue to add bonus dice to my risk equal to the fear rating of your target. So if I'm actually dealing with something supernatural, supernaturally evil, my character gets a little more iron in his spine. Joshua, what are you thinking?
Well, for my hubris, I chose the sun, which is the virtue glorious. Activate your virtue when you're the center of attention. For the next risk you determine raises, every die counts as a raise. And for his hubris, I chose the fool, which is caught curious. You receive a hero point when you investigate something unusual, especially if it looks dangerous.
I like it. Give us all a moment. We're just furiously typing into our character sheets, it looks like. And here. Okay. And that's those. And step 7 is stories. We're only going to touch on this a little bit because it really doesn't impact your character creation so much as it does what's going to come along in the game afterwards. But I do really think this is important to at least touch on a little bit. 7th Sea is sort of an experiment, it sounds, from what I've listened to on John Wick's YouTube, a little bit of an experiment on his part, in that most games you choose an action and you roll to see if it succeeds. In this case, you're going to roll, and based on your successes, narrate what you do with 7th Sea. So the stories, I think, actually kind of, in a way, reflect this a little bit as well, in that you sort of define what your character is aiming towards, and you'll work your way through it. And this is actually kind of the experience system as well. You don't you get experience, but you don't, in a way, either. What you do is you complete your stories. And so everyone is going to have a personal story, and then there will also be a sort of overarching meta story to the campaign, not necessarily coming down from 7th Sea, like, say, Shadowrun has, or Forgotten Realms, which has a timeline that evolves outside of the table. This is what I'm talking about, is exclusively the campaign at the table. So the GM will have an idea of what the story entails, and as the players and their characters complete goals, they'll gain effects and XP. But each character has their own story. If we're to go back to something very classic fantasy, the Lord of the Rings, all of them are on the quest to destroy the One Ring, but they've each got something else going on. Boromir wants to defend his home. Sam just wants to make sure that Frodo's okay. So they're all following the same agenda, but they've also got their own individual concerns, and that's what the stories do here. So, has anybody thought about their stories as of yet?
Thought about it, yes. Come up with anything? No.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This could be tough, and he tries his best to make it simple. The idea being that you don't need to write the whole thing straight out. and he gives you some advice on what you're trying to do. You choose it, and you can change it later if you think that there's a good reason for it. Starting a story is because your hero can only have one story at a time, one driving goal.
Mostly.
Yeah. He says basically you start off real loosely. So I'm gonna bore you all to death, I'm sure, by reading straight out of the text here. To start writing a story, the player should create a short name that acts as a conceptual reminder of what your hero wants to accomplish. This is the mantra that your hero repeats to keep your mind on track. Absolution. My negligence led to the destruction of my home. I'll never let that happen again. Revenge. I'm going to make them all pay for what they did to me. Cleanse. Monsters plagued my life. I cannot rest until they're destroyed. So it's a nice, simple thesis statement, almost. I think. I think that I don't really have a good, well, mastery maybe a good one-word description for it, but my character, and I'm gonna go. I can get my mouse to work. There we are.
Oh, there is a list of story starters.
There is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give a quick nod to the bard. Name my character Iago.
Oh, okay.
Good name. Wasn't a good person in the play, but it's a good name.
Mm-hmm.
And Iago's really, like I said, he's devoting himself to the sword. So I think his story is really going to surround his attempt to understand the sword and advance his mastery of it. So I don't know how I would pull that down to per se one.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya.
I think a variant of it, yes. I mean, he doesn't. I don't think I want the revenge aspect of it.
Okay, he's just looking to perfect.
Yeah, he's looking to perfect his mastery of the blade and his understanding of the sword in all its in all ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there's definitely, and I'm not I won't lie. Hey, we're all Princess Bride fans here. Even if you won't admit it, you're a Princess Bride fan. We know. So I'm not going to lie. There's definitely a lot of inspiration from Inigo there, but I don't think it's going to. I don't want to include the revenge component. He's looking to do it for, I don't want to say selfish reasons per se, but more
goal.
Yeah, more individualistic reasons. Probably not right either, but so I think that's his. What are you thinking, Richie? You said you thought about it.
Yeah, I hadn't really come up with something, but if I come up quick, probably taking a cue from the story starters, maybe Cursed.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. He decided to sleep with the wrong woman and got cursed. Maybe from the woman, because it can be a fate witch that cursed me.
Could be.
Yeah. So he got cursed, and he's trying to break the curse. Probably have to think of what the curse is. I mean, he doesn't really care about some of the ones that are here. Well, maybe the living forever thing until what is it? Where is it? Living until I fall in love. Wouldn't be a horrible curse for my character, but it might.
Oh yeah, especially if your character is a little more Don Juan. No, Don Juan really sort of loved all the women.
Well, he fell in love with all sorts of women all the time.
So that was not a great example. I apologize. But this great romancer, but you never really felt anything.
Yeah.
And so because you basically, at least in her eyes, used her, she cursed you to basically watch all of this, everyone die.
Yeah.
I like it.
There we go.
Well, my character's probably going to have an obligation. He's going to basically kind of be a modern, well, not modern day, but a pirate version of Robin Hood. He's trying to steal from nobilities and bring it to the people because he doesn't really like the nobility that much. So
down with the 1%.
So he comes from the Sarmatian Commonwealth, which is actually kind of like going down the less powerful nobles to begin with. So he's probably trying to spread that a little bit, and probably doesn't think they go far enough. So he's probably preying on other nations' noble ships and giving it out to the poor people.
I can definitely see that. So the Sarmatian, like you mentioned, the Sarmatian Commonwealth is starting to go through that point in many countries' histories where they're thinking that one person running everything isn't necessarily a great idea, and that more power should be spread out to more people. So they're sort of edging towards democracy a little bit.
Well, the background.
I can definitely see that someone thinking maybe they're not doing it fast enough, maybe they're not going far enough, and taking it into their own hands to show other nations that they should, toe the line as well. I like it.
Yeah.
So I think we've got 3 pretty good stories going on there. I don't think we'll really dig too deeply into this, but again, like I want to touch on it. What you would do in the future is kind of define the goal, what the end of the story is supposed to look like. You don't have to write down everything, but you should have basically what it tells you is you want a starting point, what you're doing, how you'll resolve it, or what would trigger its resolving, and that first step. And like I said, this is sort of the way you advance your characters in 7th C. Depending on what you want to do, you need a certain number of steps. So like skills are fairly easy to improve in a way. Whatever rank you're trying to get to, you need that many steps in a story to justify having quote unquote learned it. I realize I'm doing air quotes, great radio. So like for instance, Iago, my Castilian, is pursuing that mastery of the blade. Obviously, his mechanical end goal is to advance his weaponry to 4, so he's going to need 4 steps in his story. So maybe as a first step, he needs to find a famous master, a particular famous master who will teach him the next, to help teach him more about the sword. And that's all you need is that one step, because once you get to that step, then you and your GM can talk together about what's the next step. And after you've done 4 of these things, then you can basically say, hey, look, I've resolved this story. Mechanically, I do this. I get my 4th dot in weaponry. And then you develop a new story. What's my next goal? But like I said, I don't think we really need to flesh them out too deeply. He does, like as Richard mentioned, provide a handy list of some starters, and they have some really great, and they do have endings attached to them as well. So that's really nice. Some examples of some fully fleshed out ones. Step 8 is details for the character sheet, and this is your basic stuff. Reputation, which is a descriptive word. You'll earn a reputation over the course of play. So you don't really start off with one unless you buy it as an advantage. But it's a single word that basically can influence the game. Adds dice when you roll, then when it's applicable. So if I was to compare this to another role-playing game, this might be kind of like Fate's. My brain just fried, and I can't think of what they call them. But traits, So if this little descriptor applies, you get some extra dice. You pick your languages. Everyone gets languages equal to their wits. So since everyone starts at least 2, you know Old Thayan, which is a sort of common tongue, and your native language. If you've got more than 3, you can pick up some extra ones.
More than 2.
Yeah, more than 2. Sorry. You can join a secret society. Some of which, actually, I like most of them. There's a quick list of them, but there's not a lot of detail right in the character creation section. You have things like Brotherhood of the Coast, which is a group of pirates.
Yeah, that's probably what I would be under.
Die Cruise Reader, which is a group of monster hunters.
What if I just joined them all?
You can't.
The Explorer Society, which is pretty much what it says on the tin. The Invisible College is a group of clergy who are trying to take down the Inquisition, who has been cracking down on scholarly work. The Knights of the Rose and Cross, which are knight errants, who just basically wander the world righting wrongs and meting out justice. Los Vagabundos, which is a cabal of bodyguards set to protect the more virtuous nobles of Theo and overthrow those that aren't worthy. A group whose name I am so never going to try and pronounce, but translates known as Grandmother's Shawl, who basically is, well, they're a bunch of peaceniks. They seek to end war and bring peace.
Yeah, but they're not pacifists.
I like my idea. Peaceniks.
Well, peacenik is correct, but they're willing to kill to make their end to meet their ends.
Peace for enemies. Nice. I like it. And the Religiare, which basically end up being anarchists, if I recall correctly, unless he's changed it. Freethinkers who want to remove the 2 great corruptions from the world, monarchy and the church. So, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have too much of a problem with like a pure democracy, but.
Yep, and then you have wealth points, which money in this is a little fungible. You have what's known as wealth points. Basically, the idea is you can always afford your basic needs. You're always able to replace your clothes. You're always able to eat. You always have basic shelter. Anything else is going to use wealth points, and it's a very vague idea of how wealthy you are.
Yeah.
Wounds, unless you have a mechanical advantage, basically don't change. What happens is you have a little spiral, which is kind of cool. You'll take regular wounds up until a certain point, which becomes dramatic wounds, which influence your ability to do things. Hero with 1 or more dramatic wounds gains a bonus die on all risks. Actually, once you've damaged yourself, or once you've been hit enough, the fight's real, and you start to concentrate a little more.
You do a Bruce
Lee,
become really angry.
Raw. Yes, basically. Once you get 2 or more dramatic wounds, the villains that you're fighting smell blood, and they get a little bit bonus dice. And then at 3 or more wounds, you get any risk you make, it tends to explode. So I don't know if you, just in case anyone's not familiar with that sort of mechanic, if you roll a 10 on this is a D10 system, so you're going to roll pools of 10-sided dice. And any 10s you roll will what's known as explode, which basically means you take that 10, you get 10 points for it, you roll a second die, and also get that die. And basically you can keep doing that ad infinitum. And once you get 4 dramatic wounds, you're helpless, so that's the end of your sort of health pool. Everybody's health pool is basically identical. And that's pretty much character creation. Everything else is sort of a little more or less mechanical.
Well, there's still the sorcery stuff, but that's...
All right, you picked sorcery, so go ahead and talk about that. I apologize.
All right, I took the Usuran sorcery, which means the however you pronounce her name, decided I needed to learn a lesson, and she sort of stopped by and gave me powers. Now, for the Usurns, I am for some reason can't find the page. Let me go to the table of contents here. They're doing a lot of things with animals.
Right.
One of the reason I wanted this particular one is you can actually shape change into animals.
Yep.
Which is really neat. Where is it? Skills, but you can also, increase your attributes and various other things. Let me see here. Yeah, Dar Matsuki, whatever. Mother's Touch. Let's see. I can do things like I can restore items back to their original mended state. I can increase a storm. I can do some regeneration. I can do kindness, which I may offer aid to those in need, friends, strangers. Yeah, yep, and do stuff like that.
So, out of curiosity, is this things that anybody from Usura with sorcery can do, or do you pick from these?
I pick two from them because you start when you take a background that has a sorcery, you generally get two.
Right.
So I could pick, say, if I wanted to, two different animal forms, or take mend something and regeneration, which allows me to recover from damage really easily. My hands regrow, carteret, and all that sort of fun stuff. Illuminate. I can create not too dark, not too bright. Illuminate an area. Undead don't like that, and stuff like that. And I get to, as taking the background, I can choose two of these. I also have some restrictions on what I can do. All of the magics do, but like efficiency, if I choose that, I can never change my course of action due to fear. But if I do that, I must seek a penance before I can start using my magic again, which for efficiency would be I must seek out whatever is the most terrifying for me and confront it. And there's a bunch of different restrictions that you can choose from when you take this particular magic. So that's how the Usuran one works. Yeah. The other ones work similarly, but they have very different abilities. Like you took Castile, right? Isn't that Porte?
No, that's Montaigne.
Okay, they transport stuff around, and
Yes.
they literally rip wounds into the fabric of the universe to transport stuff.
Yeah, Castile used to have.
Yeah, Castile in the first edition, Castile had a right at the beginning had a lost magic, which later on was revealed to be that they could basically manipulate fire.
Oh, the fire magic, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what there is now, but you got
Castile right now doesn't have a sorcery of its own, but it does have alchemy.
Yeah, alchemy. That's what they have, which is interesting. I think Avalon has glamours. Basically, you become.
Avalon has glamour, which is like I said, spiritually. I think they did a good job translating it over spiritually. Mechanically, it's very different. You're basically channeling one of the ancient legends of the Avalon Isles.
You actually embody that.
Yeah, you embody it.
That person. Nobody else can be that person other than you.
Yeah.
So for the Avalon stuff, but there's quite a number of them.
Forte, which is, as you said, they do literally tear wounds in the world in order to teleport.
Yeah, Eisen is dealing with undead, Hexe.
Yeah, the Hexen.
Yeah.
And the summations actually literally make deals with devils.
Well, I think probably closer to what is it, Dark Fae?
Yeah, there's a little. It's a little mix of both.
Yeah, I don't know. They really and maybe Djinn because they really just care about the
Oh yeah, no, that's actually no, that's a good. I agree. I would say it's a good mix of the three.
Yeah,
Definitely got that old school, not evil, but definitely inhuman Fae aspect of it. You've got a certain mythological Jinn aspect to it, and definitely the deals with the devil aspect. So I'd say it's a good mix of them.
yeah. And Sorte is fate magic. I didn't really read through that one.
Sorte is yeah, as you said, it's fate magic. It's very interesting. It's the that's the Vodachi, which is the Italy analog.
Venice.
Yeah, and
Talking the Venice end.
it's exclusively women who have it, as far as I know. Unless it's changed that, I was going to say I didn't think it changed it. And what they can do is they can see the threads that bind everything together. So if Iago, through the course of the story, develops a nemesis, for instance, let's call him Othello, for instance. Hey, don't mock the bard. Othello and Iago would have a red thread bound between them, and that basically says these two are bound in a life and death conflict with each other, and it won't end until one of them dies. And so they'll see basically different colored threads depending on what fate is doing, and they can actually tug on them. Sometimes with actual physical results. I mean, they can actually tug on them and cause you to trip, like literally.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can manipulate your fate through by rearranging the threads, and it's very dangerous to them because the idea is that these threads that bind everybody are whipcord tight, and that if you tug too much, you'll damage yourself. They actually can cut themselves on the threads of fate, and if they pull even too hard, they'll snap and crack back on them. So it's like, if a violinist's one of the strings on the violin snaps, they can actually receive a real wound from it. One thing I'd like to do, give John a little more free advertising here. He's actually got 2 pieces of fiction, Born Under the Black Flag and Daughter of Fate. Both are 7th Sea fiction fictional novels, because this is not real, much as we love it. And I got to say, I want to say I've read them both. They are excellent. John is not paying me to say this. Quite the opposite, I think, actually, since I've given him so much of my money. John, if you want to kick back any of that, I'm saying I would not say no. But yeah, no, I mean, I highly recommend, if anybody's looking for more of the background and world of 7th Sea rather than the mechanical stuff, these 2 books are excellent primers for that. Daughter of Fate, more than Born Under the Black Flag. Don't get me wrong, both are excellent. But Daughter of Fate is a much broader look at the world. In that the character, in a very non-contrived, in my opinion, there's a number of game fiction books that I come up with very contrived ways to introduce all the unique little things about the world, every single bloody one, into their 200-page novel. And it really hurts the books. I'm not going to name names, But there are a number of game fiction writers out there that I don't think do a great job because they focus a little too heavily on showing everybody the new hotness of the world. John does a really great job in Daughter of Fate, of showing you all the really cool stuff that's going on, but doing it with a reason. Beside just, hey, look, isn't it cool that the Montaigne tear wounds in the world and teleport? He writes in, a Montaigne nobleman who has Porte for a reason. That character has a reason to be there. The fact that he's able to show us what Porte does is just kind of gravy. So I think he did really well there. And honestly, I do. I mean, even if you're not interested in the RPG, these are two, in my opinion, solid books. Does anybody have any other thoughts?
Not really.
Joshua was having some mic problems. I don't know if he's resolved that or not. Yep, sounds like he has.
Yeah.
Not here anymore.
Lies.
All lies.
That's a pretty easy thing. I mean, pretty quick character generation. Probably geared more towards the step 0 and step 8 to give you the most of your time, because the rest of it is fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Hopefully gave you a little bit of insight into the system. If anyone has any comments or thoughts and would like to put them down below, that would be excellent. We're going to try and get some out-of-stream stuff going on as well. I'm going to try and set up a Google Drive so we can post these characters that we make so anybody can take a look at them. You've all seen mine as I've been talking here, but I think it might be interesting for everybody to be able to see all the other ones. And this one will get finished up. As you can see, I'm not quite done with mine, but we'll fill in a few of the details and hopefully get those posted up, and I'll put something in the description down below, hopefully, once we get that done. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time. This is Robert signing off for Character Matters, episode 4. Thank you very much.